Welcome, everyone, to the Enter the Vortex podcast with Carol and Erin, where we share our experiences and opinions on the metaphysical and physical aspects of life as we know it. Well, welcome, everyone. That was very formal. I'm like, welcome to our Yuletide episode. I don't know.
I like formal. There's a time and a place for formal, and I also like mocking formal and pretending that I'm formal when I'm really just mocking it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think today, I don't know, I wanted to really talk about Yule and kind of Christmas holidays, Christmas traditions, Yule, whatever we want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know I have some stories and some things to talk about, and I know you have some stories and some things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we want to get started? Do you just want me to share a little bit about what Yule is, what the Yuletide season would be about? How do we want to
I'm
go?
down with learning from Erin. You can take the lead on this one.
Sure. I mean, and not that I'm I will preface this by saying that I have not been following the the Wheel of the Year as prominently in my life as some people have. But I do have a lovely resource that I find has been very instrumental in learning different traditions and different things, and also has been very helpful in allowing me to kind of pick things up and kind of take what I need and then put it down for later, right? Some of the other books that I've read about the Wheel of the Year is just really dense and really heavy to try and get through. So the book that I'm talking about is this one right here. Oh, you gotta find it. So it's Wheel of the Witch, or Year of the Witch. And it's by Temperance Eldon. I actually got this on Amazon, I think. It was either Amazon or I ordered it directly from the publisher, the Wiser Books or Weezer Books.
Mm-hmm.
But this book, like I said, is very simple to understand. And so it kind of talks about the various Sabbats of the Wheel of the Year. And so with Yule, so it's basically the pre-Christianity celebrations for the solstice, the dark months of the year, right? It's then the long nights are starting to end. Well, I mean, I guess the solstice is the longest night of the year, in the winter anyways. So it would be the longest night of the year. And then at that point, we're starting to shift into, the not springtime quite yet, but getting into, the less, more sunlight, more daylight, getting closer and closer to spring.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I really, really have always kind of with the solstice or with Christmas and things like that, I've always had this draw to fire. I always want to have a candle burning, or having a Yule log is something that's new to me. So I made myself a little Yule log with the help of my husband this year. So anyways, I'm just going to read a little bit of a passage from this book. So it says, "In the beginning there was darkness, before the light came, before days and nights, solstices and equinoxes, there was only darkness. We are born out of darkness, and we return to darkness when we pass." Isn't that just ominous and cool?
Yeah, I like the mystery about it, actually. It feels like home, coming home. Hearing old time stories, traditions of my soul.
I know, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
This darkness is as much a part of us as we are of it. The presence of it is felt heavy through this section of the Wheel of the Year. Interestingly enough, Yule has not always been directly synonymous with the winter solstice and has instead been referred to as its own season. Kind of neat.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either until I was reading this book.
I like it.
To be fair, when talking about Yule season, we should really start during the first week of December, when some of the other pagan and spiritual holidays start. These feast days lead us into the holiday season, so it would be fair to say that it starts there. And then it goes on to talk about how nearly every culture has some sort of holiday around the winter solstice.
Yeah.
So it's not very it's not specific just to Celtic or Norse, pantheons and cultures. Yeah. So because no one culture, religion, or practice truly owns the spirit of Yule, we are blessed to have an abundance of festive myths, which is awesome. While some might say that certain practices are specific in origin, I believe, so this is the author stating that she believes that nomadic European ancestors shared many of their beliefs with each other, giving us a widespread, almost uniform approach to the winter solstice season. So, in many pagan traditions, the concepts of rebirth is expressed through the birth of a divine child. The celebration may include a vigil on the eve of Yule in anticipation of the birth. The child born at Yule is given different names in different legends. So in the Egyptian mythology, the child is Horus. In Greco-Roman, the child is Apollo, and in Norse, it is Balder. In Phoenician, it's Baal, and in Celtic, it's Bel.
And then if you're Christian, you've named it Jesus.
Yeah. So it's a really, like, I love that, everyone kind of has this like winter tradition, and that like it's so far reaching and spread out that like it doesn't matter which culture or religion that you practice, you tend to have some sort of celebration, which is just really cool. I'd also like to add here, and this is just kind of my own aside, that when Christianity was taking, I guess, starting to become more mainstream and more of the world religion, if you will, a lot of the times, I think it was the Romans that really not popularized Christianity, but really brought it across the world. And they were very, what's the word I would like to use? I don't know. They were really good at like taking the pagan traditions or the locals traditions and like adapting them into Christianity, so that like when you would practice with, for example, a Christmas tree used to be a Yule thing. It wasn't necessarily a Christianity thing, right? So they adapted the Yule tree and brought it into Christianity, and then was like, cool, now you're practicing Christianity versus, your own Yule traditions or whatever. So it's kind of neat to see that as well. So shout out to all those Christians out there who are actually practicing pagan magic.
Pagan magic. They don't even realize it. I find that fascinating, actually. And the more that I dig into the stories, and like, you just type into Google like Yule traditions, and it populates with some very interesting things. A lot from like anything Nordic, Slavic, Northern European, all of that, where the heart of paganism really was birthed. And then how it has adapted over time through history. And there's a few stories that I do want to mention to the readers, to our listeners, if they want to research a little more, because they're entertaining. But I want to start first with the Celtic-based tradition of like the Holly King and the Oak King, King, because I find that one really drew me in when I was researching it a few years back, and the imagery that you get when you check on Pinterest and just like the beautiful artwork, I'm just like sucked right in. There's something about Celtic folklore, like maybe it's the fairies, I don't know, but they just like, they draw you in and they get you hooked in there, and it's just beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this from, it's actually a Learn Religions website, and it says, in many Celtic-based traditions, there is an enduring legend of the battle between the Oak King and the Holly King. These two mighty rulers fight for supremacy as the wheel of the year turns each season. At the winter solstice or Yule, the Oak King conquers the Holly King and then reigns until midsummer or Litha. Once summer solstice arrives, the Holly King returns to do battle with the Oak King, and defeats him. In the legends of some belief systems, the dates of these events are shifted, and the battle takes place at the equinoxes, so that the Oak King at his strongest, so because he's at his strongest during midsummer, which would make sense because that's when the oak trees are in their prime as well. And then the Holly King would be dominant during Yule, because that is traditionally when those winter greens are more popular and used and accessible in the forest as well. So I really find it interesting that it's kind of started as this like pagan legend, like a great story time around the fire, probably like in old villages, and then it became something a little more. Like, I know that the Wiccan belief system has also adapted aspects of that as well. But then I actually found this really cool page on Facebook that I'm now following that's about folklore, and they share some interesting stories that I came across that I was laughing. Like, it's so funny to me. There's a few different things that I can mention. Let me just pull it up, my notes. So the first one, well, let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, okay. So I think this is an Icelandic belief, and it's called the, okay, so one Santa Claus is not enough for Icelanders. We have 13 Yule lads. For the 13 nights before Christmas Eve, one of the troublesome brothers visit Icelandic homes and to tease the residents. This morning, Icelandic children awoke to see the gift behind the first visiting Yule lad. And it says in brackets, good children get a small gift left in their shoe. Naughty children get a rotten potato. So it's kind of like that, black coal that Santa leaves as well, right?
Yeah.
But what I find the most interesting is actually the the names of these Yule lads. And I'm not going to say them in Icelandic because there's no way I can formulate the consonants and the vowels in which that will do honor to the language. So I'm just going to give you the English interpretations. The first one, quite possibly my personal favorite, his name is Bowl Liquor. Okay. Sheepcoat Claude. And then this one just says Gryla. It's like, looks like an old
Grilla.
Okay, there you go. And then the English translation is Lappy Looter. He's just as big as Grilla, and he looks a little foreboding. Window Peeper is another one.
That sounds creepy.
Spoon Licker. Doorway Sniffer. Sausage Swiper. Pot Scraper. The Gully Gawk. The Skyr Gobbler, which, if you guys don't know what skyr is, it's a form of fermented yogurt style cream. And I have a friend who's Icelandic, so she schooled me a few years ago, bless her. And of course she lives in Gimli, and that's like where the Icelandics settled in our province. So anyways, Candle Beggar, I mean, it kind of makes sense, like he's obviously looking for an offering. So I suspect that if you were to provide offerings to them, they might be less trickster-ish about that. There's one guy called Stubby, of course, he's the short and stout one. There's another one called Meat Hook, which I'm just going to leave that one up to imagination. Door Slammer is another one. And then my personal favorite is the Yule Cat. Have you heard of the Yule Cat?
Yes. Erin? Doesn't they come and eat the kids that are bad?
Like, it is the most entertaining story I have ever heard in my entire life. It's legit a story about this giant cat that will terrorize children if they're not wearing new clothing, because traditionally you would receive new clothing for Christmas as a gift, and that's a tradition that I think should always be like, heck yeah, I want clothes, man. And like handmade items as well, especially back in like old small village times where you were the seamstress for your entire family, so you would adorn them with new clothing for the new year, especially kids, like they grow so much as well. Right? So it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, so the whole premise behind this is that if you're not wearing new clothes on Christmas, the cat can smell you and they'll come and eat you. And the image that I got of this big old fat gray cat, I'll send it to you because it's just worthy of sharing. I'll actually also share it on my social media platforms, like closer to Yule, because I just think it's freaking hilarious. But it just reminds me actually of the Cat Came Back story. And if you ever watch it on CBC, just the way that the cat cartoon is kind of pouncing around in the neighborhood, always coming back to his owner's home. Like, I bust a gut laughing when I read this. I was like, there's a freaking Yule Cat. Why is this, like, why was I 10 years old when I found out about the Yule Cat? Right? I'm not a cat person, but my goodness, this would to make me into a cat person.
I know, I can't remember, like, I don't know why it's been in my awareness so much this year. But like, I don't think it was the first time that I'd heard that, but it has been popping up a lot more for me over the last month, where I'm like, how did I forget about this Yule Cat thing? Right. Like, it's so funny because it's like, if you look at like, for example, the German cultures, they have like Krampus or Krampus, however you want to say it.
Krampus,
the evil, like, horned god looking creature that like would steal children. And I've always said, like, if I have, because you know how Elf on the Shelf is right now, and they're like, oh, the elf will tattle on you to Santa. I'm like, no, screw the old, like, the elf that like hides out and I have to do stuff with. No. If you want to be misbehaving, I'm going to get myself a Krampus that's going to come and like literally kidnap you out of your bed. But you know what? I have Icelandic heritage, so I'm all in on a Yule cat. It's just a little bit harder to like, actually have a cat come and eat you. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
like,
that's great.
this is like a little bit of like my horrible motherhood. Like, I just want to be a terrible mother sometimes because, like, could you imagine your child not behaving well and like misbehaving, being a rotten, child, and you're like, all right, cool. You don't want to behave? Cool. Krampus is going to come and get you. And then actually having someone dress up and steal your child. I mean, granted, I would never do that because that would be so traumatic for the child. But could you imagine they'd never do anything horrible again?
I actually wonder if that is as effective as they think it is, but I do get an like entertaining kick out of these folklore stories because so many of them are based in keeping children in line.
Right?
And it's like, man, as an adult it's funny as fuck, but when you're a child and you're literally terrified that you're never going to see your parents again. But I do know I would love to travel Europe around the Christmas season.
Oh,
Like that
yes.
needs to be a future manifestation, and like that would be cool for us to do together with our families and just go and like see all the different traditions and things. Because to go back to, I guess I would want to call it old country because I do know that I have lineage there. It would be beautiful to experience the culture firsthand and not just on what I see on the internet, what is shared from other people around the world. And now that we've increased our friendship connection and our client connection to be globally, like how cool would it be to go dance around the globe when we're allowed to travel again and experience. I would love to go travel Germany and like the UK, London, like I don't care, everywhere, anywhere that I have heritage. The German traditions really, really do interest me a lot. I do have German lineage, but I don't know that much about the culture. I know
Mhm.
more about Ukrainian culture just because that's what was gifted to us as we grew up. But I don't even think we do traditional Ukrainian Christmas style stuff because we follow the commercialized version of Christmas in my family. Our tradition is Christmas Eve, we all gather at my mom's, we open our gifts, and then Christmas Day, we spend at another one of the siblings' homes. But this past couple of years, we've decided to switch things up again. And personally, for me, I could take or leave Christmas itself. I look at it as I'm happy to hang out with my family and share food and laughter and play games. I don't care about the gifts part of it because it's getting to be overly commercialized and there's really no meaning to it. I want to put meaning back into these celebrations. And at
Mhm.
heart, when I have my own family, I'm going to be celebrating the wheel of the year turning, and we're going to be doing Yule traditions. And then whatever lineage my partner may be, we're going to incorporate all of that. So, and I think it would be kind of cool to have raised children in a way that they have like a world stage experience of what all of the traditions are like. Because as you said, there's so many different cultures that have traditions at this time of year. Like, how cool would it be to tap into that and have your kid kind of show where they're drawn to? Because that almost might even indicate maybe where their akashics are and where their past life experiences are.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I mean, one thing that I really like adore about this time of year is like, well, I can't even say about this time of year, but it's like when I was in elementary school, so like decades ago, for whatever reason, my school was pretty progressive. And I remember doing like, maybe it was like mid-November till about like when we went for Christmas holidays, we actually went through like Christmas around the world. And we talked about different cultures and different like experiences. So like I knew about Hanukkah, I knew about Kwanzaa, I
Mm-hmm.
knew obviously about Christmas and like different Yule traditions. Like we learned about Krampus and like Saint Nicholas and like things like that. So it was really cool that we got to teach or got to learn about a lot of those cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot about the different traditions. And I think that was something that really like I got to hold on to and then really appreciate as I grew up because I could understand someone else's viewpoint a lot easier than, if I just grew up in like the Christian faith, which like again, my family, we're not really religious. We're more like into the commercialized version of Christmas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um and like now having my own family and like having the space to really like explore my own like my own histories and my own experiences and things, right? Like with my husband's family, they are Polish Catholic. So the biggest thing for them is Vigilia, which is Christmas Eve,
Hmm.
which is, I guess, in essence, the waiting for the birth of Christ, right?
Mhm.
So we usually have a really big meal together. They don't have Santa, or at least in the experiences that I've had with this family, like they have Saint Nicholas that does like is it December 6th, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then for Christmas, Vigilia, whatever, we do actually it's I'll explain the tradition because it's really fascinating, be like not a Catholic at all and then having to experience this. So we before we eat dinner, we come together as like a family, and we all get a piece of the my husband would call it a Jesus, but it's like the Eucharist or like the I can't remember the Polish name for it, but it's basically the wafer, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
we all get a piece of it, and we go around and we wish each other like well wishes, like I wish you for the new year, joy, happiness, and abundance, or whatever, right? And it's very individual to each other, and then you break off a piece of their wafer, they break a piece of yours off, and then you eat it. And so you go around and you're like being blessed by all the people in the family, which is just so beautiful. Then when we eat dinner, and that's usually a really like, I think traditionally it's supposed to be like 12 to 13 dishes. And none of them are meat
Yeah.
in like, red meat and chicken and stuff like that. So it's fish and vegetables and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I think we might have chicken, but I could be wrong on that.
The
Um,
Ukrainian tradition is similar where it's meatless, like the Friday or whatever is meatless.
yeah. Yeah. So I think it's actually my husband has stories of when like when he was growing up, his mom would actually go and buy a live carp, and then keep it in the bathtub until it was time to butcher it.
That's amazing. No shower for you.
Yeah, no, we can't have showers. Like we have a carp in the bathtub. And so I'm just like, that's amazing. Um, but anyways, so yeah, after we eat dinner, then we have, and of course, like, we say some sort of blessing before we eat. Um, but like in terms of like bringing in the time for gifts, we actually have a bell, and someone goes around and rings the bell, and it's like to symbolize the Christmas angels bringing us gifts, which is just like the cutest idea ever.
It is so sweet.
I know, I love it. It's like it's really strange knowing like from where I sit in terms of like, commercialized Christmas, right? Like you have Santa come and bring you gifts on Christmas Eve, and then you wake up Christmas morning and you unwrap everything. Um,
Mhm.
and just the idea of like these Christmas angels, and like everyone of course knows that there's no actual angels bringing gifts, because like even the youngest, before my daughter was born, even the youngest was aware, like he was the one going around ringing the bells saying, okay, now it's time to open presents, which is super cute. um but yeah, like it's really fascinating to me to see other people's like traditions or like family gatherings and things like this. Like it's so interesting.
Mhm.
um and I think that like for me, like kind of going back to what I was saying earlier with like having a family now, and especially having a little one, um I love the idea of like taking a little bit from here and taking a little bit from here, and then maybe even like incorporating my own like concoction of stuff, right? I mean, I really love the idea of having like a Christmas per se, because like that makes it the easiest to kind of translate to, other people out there. But I do love the idea of celebrating some sort of Yule tradition with the solstice, and, still maintaining like the Polish Catholic stuff. Um, and being able to kind of sample from a lot of these different things and just like create our own little like family traditions. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I've got a few things that I want to like incorporate and add, but I'll let you talk about your traditions, or I can't steal the show here.
Oh, come on. I would let you. I actually really love how beautifully intentional the passing of the wafer and giving blessings to each other.
Mhm.
And on the flip side of that is the idea of like the Seinfeld popularity of like, isn't it Festivus, where like the airing of
Yeah.
grievances or something like. I think that our family should do both. Like, let's do an airing of grievances, clear the air, and then now, okay, now what do we actually want to bless each other with? Because maybe that'll help us like actually like each other. But it's funny when I look at what the like quote unquote traditional Yule origins are and the traditions that are incorporated into that, and then how much of that we actually do and don't even realize that it is that. So I just wanted to add, I have another source from a Celtic and Viking page, and it gives you some rituals that are related to Yule that I just want to toss out there into the world if anyone is curious, and they can do some more investigating on what might feel right for their families. So you mentioned already lighting of the log of the Yule, and I look at solstice as, and Yule itself as like a celebration of bringing back the light, because we are walking often from Samhain, like Halloween Samhain, that time of, you know, it's the dark time of the year. It's like all the shadow work coming up for us to work on our inner self. And also literally the world is going darker because we've shifted away from the sunshine, and it's like the seasonal changes. And so and it was interesting. My dad said this to me, and I had never thought about this ever before, but I was like, oh, it's winter solstice. And I'm not excited to have it be officially winter. And he's like, why? He says, that means that the sun is coming out more often. And I was like, oh, you're right about that. He's like, yeah. He's like, when we have the solstice, that means that it's the longest night of the year, but then that means it's brighter in the morning. And this man used to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning and would be driving down major roadways because he worked across town. His drive to work was like almost an hour. Oh, and so he would be leaving at like 6 o'clock in the morning in the darkness, and then coming home after 6 p.m. in the darkness. And he says, that's hard on you. Even though he was an auto mechanic and he was working in a shop where there's windows everywhere, your body physically notices that drawing away of the light, right? And I'm like full proponent of like anywhere I can get vitamin D is definitely a thing. So, and I really notice, you know, from October to November, usually about the end of November, it hits me that it's like, oh yeah, I probably should start taking my vitamin D now because it's been that, you know, dark time. But so that idea of like bringing back the light, lighting the Yule log, setting intention with what you are doing, and taking a look at what you're ready to let go of from the year past and what you want to call forth for the year forward. And it says that traditionally the lighting of the Yule log, you burn it for 12 hours. And then the ashes are scattered across the fields to make them fertile. Ooh. So that would be very like farmland village kind of community style, which makes sense. Decorating the houses with mistletoe, for being the one that, I think that's a spelling mistake, being the one that grows in the oak, which I guess, I don't know where mistletoe actually grows, but maybe that. Okay, I need to research this, but if mistletoe grows in the oak, that's kind of funny because it's a play on the holly king and the oak king, because holly is often used in mistletoe. It's not the same plant, but often when you get a mistletoe ball, there's also holly included in it, which I think are both poisonous because mistletoe is a white berry and holly is also poisonous. So it's also interesting. We should do an episode on poisonous plants and medicines and stories about that. That'll be fun because it's really cool when you explore the medicinal herbal. And I know herbalism for you is a thing, and for me, like it is, but I don't know that I want to take the professional route. But I'm fascinated from a hobby perspective.
You best believe I'll share those codes.
Heck yeah. Okay, so
I'll be your reference.
Yeah, that's fine. You can give us the technical responses, and I'll just tell you the folklore aspects of it. I'm down with that. I actually was on a hike in Alberta last year, and I had come across wintergreen, and I had no idea what it ever looked like. And I was like, this is wintergreen. This is really cool. Like, and I knew there was a lot of medicinal properties from wintergreen, and I had never seen the live plant before. So it was a really interesting experience for me. And it was around when this was in 2020, and the Calgary area had an early snowfall. It was like the end of September, and it was a blanket of snow when I had arrived to Calgary that night. And I was like, I freaking left Winnipeg, which was like plus 20 the week that I left, to drive to Calgary to see a friend, get a tattoo, and bring in winter. What is this about? Like, it was, oh geez, yeah. Anyways, it's so funny. Okay, back to Yule traditions. Turning off all the lights, and then turning them on one by one. Maintaining a night vigil to wait for the sun is another one. Going from wassail through the town, which was in current language, asking for the bonus, which now this is flashing me Fred Penner, because he has a wassailing song. And if you actually listen to the lyrics of his song, I love Fred Penner for Christmas, by the way. I love Fred Penner in general. He's just a fantastic artist, but
a wholesome human.
Right? Totally. And I mean, I'm a grown ass adult and I don't care. I actually saw him live a couple of years ago when he played Winnipeg, and it was a Christmas tradition. But like when you actually pay attention to the songs and the lyrics, like they tell a story.
Mhm.
And that is how a lot of oral history is passed down, right? Through song, through stories around the bonfire, and from the elders to the youngers and all of that. So I mean, if it's a song itself and you memorize it, it's pretty much the information is succinctly within that story. You can't really misinterpret it if you have followed the traditional language of the song. So
Mhm.
I do remember being drawn into that song about a wassailing, and it's like essentially like a play on caroling door to door, but it's just in the firm for it. And there was like, I think there's some traditional drinks involved as well. I think like the idea of hot toddy is actually the original intention was to cure the common cold, but if you're actually enjoy warm beverages, like it's I think it's heated whiskey. Some people use rum. There's other medicinals that are put into it, and you take a shot of it and it's heated, and like then that's where hot buttered rum comes from, and eggnog and all these wonderful delicious drinks that I
Yeah.
don't touch because I don't drink alcohol, but that's okay.
There's mulled
um,
wine as well and stuff like that.
yeah, absolutely. All the spices, all those warming foods, like during
Mhm.
the darkest part of the year and in the winter, like that's what you need is all these warming foods. And pine needle tea is another one that has a high level of vitamin C. And that's traditionally used as well. Like who would have ever thought you could collect pine needles and make a tea out of it? Like I haven't tried it yet, but I actually was gifted a tea bag from a company that when I ordered a bunch of essential oils, and it included a Douglas fir and something else, like
Nice.
whatever, pine needle tea. So maybe they'll do that on Yule this year. And then another tradition is um okay, so this one I love because this is more like back to the Celtic stuff. One of the traditions of this holiday was to put into the houses a fir tree, which was symbolized as the sacred Yggdrasil, which is the world tree, the life of the world tree, and the great ash tree whose branches hung on the nine worlds, including Midgard or the land of men. Houses were decorated with mistletoe or holly as it symbolized the tree. So again, bringing the forest into your home and being in communion with the nature around you, like I am all about that any time of year.
Yeah. There's actually Frozen of all things.
Oh yes, that's a
There's a
great movie.
really I know there's a really good, what is it? Short, I guess you can call it. It's like maybe a half an hour long, but I can't remember what it's called now. But Olaf the snowman basically goes out with Sven because Elsa and Anna don't have any Christmas traditions or Yule traditions or whatever, because, the whole story of Frozen. Um, and so Olaf goes out to like investigate all the different traditions of the kingdom, and it's so cute because you get to learn about different little traditions. And I think um, he goes to one household and he's like, so you cut down a tree and dress its corpse in candles. Cool. And then like the children are crying because they're like, what the heck? And I'm just like,
Yeah,
that is amazing. That's like the best way to describe the Christmas tree.
yep. I love Olaf. He's my all-time favorite Disney character, except for that's not true. I have three: Timon from Timon and Pumbaa, and the Emperor from Emperor's New Groove.
Oh
I
God,
think a lot
yes.
of it has to do with like the voice character, like David Spade. Come on, come on. How can you not enjoy David Spade?
Yeah, pretty funny. But
I like
yeah,
the comic relief characters.
yes, I agree. And Olaf is so like, he drops some pretty sick knowledge, you gotta say.
Totally.
Like
Yep, straight face, poker face, and like the adults in the room are laughing, or the adults in the theater are laughing like crazy, and the kids think it's cute too, but they don't get the other layers of the jokes. But there's
Mhm.
there's a lot of wisdoms in Disney for sure. There's a lot of other layers of things as well we can discuss on another episode. But
Yes.
overall, I'm still a Disney fan. I do appreciate.
Yeah, I hear you. Um, and it's interesting too because one of the things that I had seen in here as well, like this book has its own little like section on Yuletide traditions, which is
Mhm.
just beautiful. And one of the things that I've kind of um really enjoyed doing over the last couple of years is like making those little like Yule balls, or they like the book calls them witch balls. Um, but essentially, like the way I do it, which is a little bit different probably from some other people who practice, different things as well. But for me, like I said, like the starting of the Yule ball has been kind of over the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And this ball is really like I get like a little glass ornament, or I've been using plastic ornaments because they're cheaper and easier to find.
Mhm.
And also not breakable when I have a young child running around.
Or cats.
Yeah, or cats. My cat has not been in my tree though, so that's good.
That's good.
But yeah, like I take the ball and I stuff it full of like different herbs and essential oils and spices and things like that that I mean, I'm picking them intuitively, but some people might go through and like pick out like this herb means these things and this spice does this and that kind of stuff. Like you might be more intentional in it. I just go, what smells good? What am I drawn to? And what can I put in here? And so then put it all in the ball. But then I take a piece of paper and I write down like I don't want to say goals for the year because that's not what it is, but my intentions for what I want the year to be like and what I hope to accomplish and what things I want to experience and stuff like that. And then I roll it up into like a little tiny scroll and you like, tie it off and you put it in the ball and then like you hang it on your tree. And then when you pack the tree away, you also pack the ball away.
Mhm.
And so I did this, I think for the first time, it would have been last year. Um, and I have my little Yule ball that I did last year, and I actually got it out and I got my little like scroll and I opened it up and I looked at it and it's like a nice, I guess you could almost say like it's like a time capsule. It's like a nice little way you can look at the time capsule type of thing.
Mhm.
And it's really, I think that's a beautiful tradition in and of itself to be able to like really put intentional thought behind what you want to achieve or what you want to experience and then in the coming year see how that is. And then I think last year too I did like a little, I think it was on Yule, right at the dark night of the year, right, like where I sat down and I had all the candles and I really was intentional about what like I wanted to release or let go of from the year and what I wanted to welcome in with the dawning of the day, right. I've
Mhm.
always wanted to hold like a all night visual, like waiting for the sun to rise. I'm sure I'm probably a few years away from that. I kind of want my child to be able to like, take care of herself a little bit more than what she needs right now because I'm not staying up for all night for nothing. Um, Not for nothing, I shouldn't say that, but like I'm not staying up all night and then trying to maintain my little 2-year-old because that's just a little
Yeah.
nope. Um, but yeah, like I love that idea. And I don't know, I feel like I'm coming back to different traditions or different things that I want to experience that like I haven't had a chance to really delve into until probably about now, which is
Mhm.
just really cool. And then yeah, like like I talked about earlier, like with the Yule log, I have like a nice little log that I've cut little candle holes in and I have little candles. So every I haven't done it yet, but I think probably for sure on Yule or when I'm not working so much, um, I'm gonna light them every night, and that's gonna be my little thing.
Mhm. I like that. And I also I am a huge fan of any kind of greenery, and I'll go forage in the forest and provide offerings of energy or some other kind of offering back to the forest. And I often bring home cedar. It's one of the other medicines I love using at this time of year.
Mhm.
And I just like decorating with the cedar. And then when it's like time to clean up and switch over, usually after probably mid-January is when I kind of do that switch. And then it's like I've really been in that energy since the middle of December of what, saying goodbye and allowing the proper grieving process of the year that has been, especially these last 2 years for a lot of us. I think it's been a lot more grief, and a lot more grieving is required, and just honoring that and kind of whispering all of that away to the plants that I have on my altar space in my room. I have every single shelf in my room is decorated with some form of cedar or pine or sage that I forage in the summertime and all those different herbals. And then I will do a big bonfire at some point, and I will. I haven't done a Yule log. I don't know that that would. I mean, I could do that this year, but I haven't. Perhaps when I'm on my own again and I'm starting my own family traditions, I'll make that a part as well. But there's some beliefs that say that you hold the Yule log for 12 days and you speak intentions into it, and then you burn it on the 12th day. So it's a lot similar to like the 12 days of Christmas kind of thing too, like where there's something going on every night, which also parallels Hanukkah having like the 8 days and nights, and I really like the idea of being in ceremony and like festivities for more than just one day. And it's not just Christmas Eve, but it's like there's like intentional things happening every night leading up to the big grand finale. And then so some traditions say that you would after the 12 days burn the Yule log, and then other traditions will say that you keep that Yule log for a year and then you burn it the following year. Either way, it's a fire. I like fire. I like burning stuff. I like sitting around the bonfire, and I don't want to say, maybe I am speaking to the fire, but just, I guess, bubbling up with or being in communion with and watching the flame and like flame scrying kind of thing. Like I definitely have gotten into some altered states of mind, completely sober, but just staring at the flame and watching the flame and the embers, the way that they move and the way that they flash. And it's like living art to me. And I like the idea of collecting all of those greens and things that I had taken from the forest and then giving them back as ash kind of thing. Like I will incorporate that in my offerings in the future. Once I have my dream home in a forest, in the middle of the forest, it'll be a lot more powerful for me to be in communion with the land, because it will be my land that I'm taking care of, and the animals in my space and all of that. So
yeah.
But I mean, it also makes sense. Like to me, like I have an artificial tree. I have a few actually. And I understand like when apartments they don't allow real trees because it's a fire hazard. I totally understand that. If you're not versed in how to care for a real tree, it is a fire hazard. It legit, they like, if you don't keep them watered long enough, they turn to powder. you snap a finger and a piece of static and it could set it off. So I understand that. But at the same time, like the idea of having that energy and having that tree be part of your ceremony and your family experience, and then gifting it off back to the land, having a big beautiful bonfire again as another gathering, or like as a solo event, either way. And to me, that speaks to me on a soul level of, it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what belief system, it doesn't matter what spirituality, it doesn't matter if it's witchcraft or not. Like to me, it is just honoring myself at a soul level and earth at a soul level, and being back in communion with nature.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I think for a period of time, somewhere probably in my teens and early 20s, like I got really fed up with Christmas. I was just like, Christmas is just a crock of shit. It's all just commercialized and blah, blah, blah. I hated it. The best part of Christmas for me was coming together with my family and being able to like celebrate with them and enjoy the amazing food, because we always had huge feasts. And like I kind of low-key was excited that my parents split up because I got 2 of everything. Like you get 2 Christmases, you get 2 Thanksgivings, you get 2, like I love the food, right? And now I'm kind of, now that like I've grown up a little bit more and I can appreciate again. And I think part of it too was that I was working in like, I was serving. So I was working in like customer service, and then I was working in retail, and like from like the beginning of November or right after Remembrance Day, we like, they would put on the Christmas music and it would be like, it's a holly. And I'm like, fuck, I hate this music. So like to me, actually, like to this day, I cannot listen to the music, like the Christmas carols with lyrics in them. If I'm going to listen to the Christmas music, it has to be all instrumental, and it has to be certain, like there's certain people that I can listen to, like Pentatonics is usually one of them that I can listen to. I'm a fan of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They are fantastic.
I've seen them live, but not for Christmas.
Oh God, it was my tradition. That was a thing that I started when I was probably almost a decade ago, actually. I would go and see them every year that they came in. And I was like, I go all out when I'm actually into a artist of some sort. I'm like, I don't care how much your tickets are. I'm paying for floor seats, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, concerts are an expensive habit.
But I just generally don't like art. Like I don't like music enough to actually go to concerts. But the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, they are a whole production. Like they're a show,
Yeah.
they're a Christmas story, right? So I think I know for sure I've seen them live 3 times.
Hmm.
And then I can't remember. I don't know if it was like I didn't have the time off or something, or if they didn't come a year or something like that. I don't remember. Maybe I just didn't want to. I had seen the same show 3 years in a row that I'm kind of like, ah. But like I know some people who do that with the Nutcracker. They go to the Nutcracker. Actually, the first time I'd ever seen, this is off topic, but kind of sort of a together. The first time I had seen the Nutcracker was actually the year that I was pregnant. Yeah, I think did I know I was pregnant at the time? I don't remember. I was just highly emotional because there were so many cute little children running around, and I'm like, oh my God, they're in like little mouse outfits.
Oh my goodness,
Um,
that would be cute.
yeah, it was super adorable. And yeah, I remember being there and like watching them. And like, I am a sucker for ballet. Like, doesn't matter what ballet it is, I get so emotionally invested in the music and like this, well, not like they're telling you the story, but like, how to dance out the story. And I can get so weepy so fast. But yeah, like these are things that I like to be able to experience with my child too, like when she can eventually handle concerts that are super duper loud and you lose your hearing for 3 days after. um get those little earmuffs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Or
like
the earplugs.
yeah, right, like I don't know, those are things that I'd love to take her with, like an experience. And even too, like the idea of going around and seeing like a whole bunch of Christmas lights and like the like I think the best part about being in this position now, like I remember obviously being a child and growing through Christmas and things like that, and having that magic of Christmas kind of fade as you get older, because then you start realizing like, oh God, I have to buy Christmas presents, and
Yeah.
oh, I have to make cards, and oh my goodness, this and all that stuff. Like it really starts to kind of, I don't want to say jade you, but like I don't like the commercialism of everything, right?
Mm.
And then now having a little girl and like being able to see like the magic in her eyes, like when she comes and sees the Christmas tree all dressed up for the first time ever, she's like, like like there's that meme of the cat with the
Wow.
really big eyes and you can see the sparkles of the lights. Like that's what I see in her eyes when she sees the Christmas trees. And when we go and we see, like there's a guy that decorates his house like to the nines, um just by our mailbox. So every time we go and get the mail in the evening, because it's dark, he's got his Christmas lights on, and she just like is so excited and she wants to touch everything and see everything. And I just love the ability of like sharing that with her and like watching the magic of Christmas through her eyes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like it's so exciting. And I think that's one thing that I really, really adore, and that I think people could really take, I guess, wisdom from, is like if you ever get jaded on a holiday or you get so burnt out from the commercialism of everything, look at the children around you, because they're not seeing the commercialism, they're seeing the magic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the history because it's not really the history, but like they're seeing the magic and the sparkle and like the lore and all the excitement that like these seasons bring. um and then you can I don't know, you can kind of feel a little bit better when you actually see that, and you can kind of take um that experience in and kind of help de-jade you, I don't know, make you less of a bah humbug Ebenezer Scrooge type of person.
I wonder what it is about becoming an adult that we lose the awe and the magic and the wonder of life. Is that something that is systemically like quieted, or is it just the way that our mind shifts and matures, or I don't know. Like, and then I feel like we spend some of our adult life seeking for that again until we find it, or else we give up on it, and then like you say, like you end up being the Ebenezer Scrooge. But I don't need 3 creepy ghosts coming at me in the middle of the night to have me change my mind. Thank you very much. My room is gridded for a reason. So
Yeah, and I mean, that could be an episode even in itself, because I think that could be unpacked a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I think there is something about like becoming an adult and having all these responsibilities thrust upon you, and like really realizing that like a lot of your hopes and dreams or the things that you felt were magical are actually not, and like not to tank the energy of this episode because it's been so beautiful, but like that could be a total episode of itself.
But then what also if we look at it as the angle of lifting all those layers off and re-inviting the magic in? Because to counter what you're saying, like there are things that as a child I did not think were magical that now I'm an adult, I'm like, holy shit, this stuff's real. Like we buy into the fairy tale and then we're told it's not true, and then we go back into adulthood and we're like, but actually I have an experience where I can say this was true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's obviously sides to everything. But I also feel like with the way the world has shifted in the last 2 years, that I feel like we're really looking as a global collective of like what really fucking matters. Because if we're finding that things are just have like completely been kiboshed and like the magic has been taken out of us, we're also then seeking why, asking those questions why. And if you're not, maybe this is an invitation for you to start asking why and to take a look at how to reincorporate that magic of the seasons in general, like not just winter. Like I had this realization, like I don't know if it's a Winnipeg thing, a Manitoba thing, if it's the stupid media influence, but like you ever listen to them talk on the news about how shitty the weather? Oh, it's going to be so cold, and it's going to be so windy, and the wind chill's going to be high today, blah blah. Like, how do you motivate children to go over recess if all they hear first thing in the morning is how shitty of a weather day it's going to be? Like,
Right.
shut up. You're not helping you're not helping here. And when I was teaching, I kind of had that realization. But then I was like, do I actually even hate winter? And I'm like, no, I don't actually hate winter at all. I was just conditioned since small child that the weather is awful and you have to bundle up, and it's like everyone makes it out to be this thing that's wrong, that you have to do all these extra things for winter. But I also have a memory of coming home from school, walking home in the almost dark. Like yesterday it was so cloudy in Winnipeg that it was dark and I had lights on during the daytime
Yeah.
because the clouds were so thick and the sun was so much farther away. And I would come home from school, which was ending at 3:30. By the time I dawdle and get dressed and walk home again, it's like 3:45, 4 o'clock before I'm home. I only lived 6 houses away from my elementary school, but I took my time. I wasn't in a hurry to get home. I would watch my cartoons that I loved for about an hour, have something to eat, and then I would either choose to go outside or be sent outside. And we used to have a big giant pine tree in our backyard, and it provided a lot of privacy. So I would go and climb under the pine tree. I was out of the wind, I was in the snow, and I was hanging out under this tree thinking about life. And I was outside until I was called back in, whether it was bedtime or bath time or both. And I would be given like hot chocolate or hot tea or something to like warm you back up again. And sometimes, like, especially like in the winter, I like closer to Christmas, I remember doing that and hanging out with my neighbor, and we'd be playing in the backyard building snow forts. Meanwhile, my mom's baking cookies and we didn't know she was even baking cookies. And then we come in for hot chocolate and we get hot cookies out of the oven too, which I thought was like really cute, you know? And to have that realization that like I used to spend so much time as a kid outside playing, why am I not doing that more as an adult? And why am I vilifying the weather? Why am I vilifying the temperature? Why am I vilifying the fact that that the sun is like further away? Like, I don't actually hate winter. So I would also like to invite our other listeners out there that maybe get caught up in grumbling about the weather. Like, is that actually you, or is that what we've just been taught because of the way the media portrays literally everything? Everything is bad. Everything is, going to cause the world to end. Like, or you could pause and take a look at the beautiful sparkle of the snowflakes that are falling on the pine trees behind you in your yard or on your forest walk or wherever, and pause and soak in that wonder and that awe that we used to have as children and light that spark in ourselves again. Because I think the world needs more of that, and we need to turn back to nature. And I don't just mean go hang out in the forest. Like, what is your true nature at your soul level? Like, have you ever tested into the beliefs and the stories that you've told yourself for so long? Because I mean, it took me 40 freaking years to realize that I didn't hate winter. like I would still go out and do hikes. All of the last 2 years, I think I spent most of my pandemic in Birds Hill Park. Like the amount of hours I've clocked hiking those trails and just being in that space. And I would do it all year round. So I can't really honestly say that I ever hated winter. Like if you're dressed properly, you don't hate winter.
Yeah.
I think I hated the conditions that created me and put me in positions where I had to be outside, like daycare especially. Like daycares, my goodness, or even just having multiple toddlers and getting them dressed for winter can be a chore if they're not independent, which is, fine. But again, I could spend my time making it wrong and making it bad, or realize like these kids have no idea how much you hate it and they're just ready to play, but they can't get their foot in their boot because the boots are so thick and clunky and whatever. And like, yeah, their pant leg's going to fall off the boot a million times and you're going to have to rewrap it around their boot. But you know what? As long as they're warm and they're happy, who cares? Because they are, in essence, in their true nature, and they're enjoying what is happening outside. So for me to have that realization, I had a good laugh at myself. It's like, I think it was just like the last 2 weeks. It's like, I don't actually hate winter. I have a great winter coat. I have great winter boots. I found ones that I don't slip on my ass every single time I hit an ice patch.
Good.
And they
Good.
keep my feet warm, and I can go and climb and play in the snow and make snow angels and all those fun things. Like we would go tobogganing until it was after dark. My dad would drive my neighbor and I when we were in our early teens, pre-teens. He would drop us off at Kildonan Park and he would just park up the road and we would go toboggan all along the riverbank. Like I don't even know if we were supposed to be in that little area, but who cares? It was safe. Like it wasn't like a real river. It wasn't the Red River. It was like that little creek that goes in between the pond and behind the witch's hut, and we would go climb and walk along there. And there was a few years where they made that a skating path, and I wish they would do it again because it would be lovely to be able to skate through the forest. Maybe that's a goal for me on a property.
Oh, that would
Like
be
a
lovely.
skating path along in the forest. Like I'm not interested in the river skating stuff that they do at the Forks downtown in Winnipeg. Like it's never been an interest to me. And I would like to thank Robert Munch, who introduced me to the very terrifying story of A Promise is a Promise, which is an Inuit tradition of I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to butcher it. But anyway, it's basically this entity that lives underwater and steals children who walk on thin ice. Okay, so
Sounds
thank you
terrifying.
thank you for the traumatization of that. But they remind me a bit of like, I don't know, they have funky sharp teeth and long black hair, which similar to like the
Oh,
imagery
yes.
of those things that were in the Harry Potter fourth movie where they were underwater, the sea creatures. Like sea creatures in general can be creepy because it's the unknown, obviously. But again, this is another like fear mongering story of teaching children in a backwards kind of way safety of like, you don't want to go on the water. If the ice is thin, you could fall in and somebody would take you. Well, what if it was just warning children to not walk on thin ice so they don't drown in the ice water? Because when you like, unless you're Wim Hof, you ain't going to survive it unless you've done the practice of cold water bathing. Like you're not going to get out of that alive. Like, sorry to say, like, not to be a Debbie Downer, but that's just like the realistic basis behind these stories, and yet in that story by Robert Munch, the end of it was that they kind of, they were kind of, the family themselves were tricksters back again, and they kind of tricked these entities into believing that they were going to send their children to the water for them as their sacrifice, but then they tricked them and they managed to maintain the safety of their children, and these entities didn't get what they had come for and they were sent back. So anyway, like it does have a happy ending, but I remember being traumatized by this as a child,
No
and it's just
kidding.
like, if we just talk about like, if we look at it from a discerning point of view, these stories hold meaning, traditions hold meaning, and cautionary tales are not a bad thing if we give them context. And even as small children, like they're able to understand, like, there's not actually this thing coming to get you out of the water. However, you need to understand that the water is really cold and you likely wouldn't survive just because of the temperature and the fact that you can't swim. And if the undercurrent takes you away and then you're stuck under a thickness of ice that you can't break free, well, like that's just logic. But it doesn't have to necessarily be a scary story, but it's become that because it makes it easier to pass on the traditional knowledge. And I get it, but I mean, I don't know. Am I gonna traumatize my kids when I have some? Maybe. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like it's just an interesting situation with like, I remember hearing about those, I don't know, I don't even know what you want to call them, but like, yeah, the creepy little ice demon thingies. Um, and it is interesting. Like we could even delve into that in another episode in and of
Mhm.
itself too. Like this just the different cautionary tales that we have told children or that have like children have been told over the X number of years, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I guess to just wrap up our episode,
Yeah.
yeah, like what's something that you are going to be doing this Yule or this Christmas season?
Um, I actually like baking and putting intention into my creations that way. I've also kind of researched the different types of shortbreads from around the world because each region has like a slightly different take on it, and also how they decorate them. So and the history of like gingerbread and the decorations and the shapes that they choose. So I have a quite the collection of cookie cutters and stamps and things. So and I do enjoy decorating that and putting that intention into my art, and food to me is art too. So that's one thing for sure. And I would like, hopefully the winds will hold out on me so that I can have a bonfire on Yule itself, which is the day after we release this episode, I believe.
Yes, because it'll be Tuesday, I believe.
Yes. So that is the goal. The weather's supposed to fluctuate a little bit this week. So, cold, 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 random warm day, cold, 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 random warm day. Don't know what the temperatures are going to be like or the winds, but as long as the wind holds back enough that I can have a bonfire safely in my backyard and I'm not chasing embers everywhere around the yard because of the wind, that's what's going to happen. And then obviously helping prepare my family for actual Christmas Eve. We are not doing any like I'm doing helping the baking. My mom has an injury, so she can't help, which is fine. I'm making some basic Christmas dishes, and then we're ordering Chinese food because we don't want to cook it and deal with it, and then leftovers for days is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually really hoping to have Christmas Day to myself. Maybe have a Bailey's in my coffee if I decide. That's probably the only alcohol I'll ever partake in this season is like 1 ounce of Bailey's in my coffee in the morning of Christmas Day. And if it's warm and snowy or not warm and snowy, playing in the snow a little bit and just enjoying the quiet and the peacefulness of like that twilight to sunrise kind of
Mm-hmm.
I think.
That sounds lovely.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'll probably be doing some sort of like shedding the old, bringing in the new, some manifesting, journaling, maybe dreaming of some sorts. Um, and then, yeah, like, I mean, we've got plans for Christmas. Like, I happen to be working at my muggle job Christmas Eve, so that's fun.
Oh, I thought you got
Um,
off.
I know I was hoping so, but not so. But yeah, so I work nights. So I'll be up for when Santa comes to jingle by with a sleigh. um, but yeah, and then I'm off Christmas Day. And so my mom and my sister are gonna come over Christmas Day. We're gonna open gifts. And then either Christmas Day evening or Boxing Day, we'll be having something with my dad. So that'll be, you gotta get all of the family. Um, I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if like my husband's side is going to be doing anything. I think a lot of them are still kind of gun shy with the whole COVID stuff. So we'll see what happens. We might just do like a virtual Christmas with them, which is, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but that's pretty much it. And then gearing up for New Year's. So,
Yeah, my New Year's is more intentional actually than Christmas. Christmas, I kind of go through the motions of what our family has historically done, but with New Year's, that's where it's more self-focused. And my business mentor is doing a 12 days of abundance thing, and we're on day 5 now, and I've listened to all of his podcast episodes to catch up to it. If anyone out there in the world is interested, his name is James Wedmore, and the podcast is Mind Your Business Podcast, and it's episode 503. It was where you want to start for if you want to hop in on the 12 days of abundance. And it's just really reminding me to bring gratitude back into my practice. And this is something that I used to do a lot of, and wow, has it changed my life. And it's like I kind of forgot about it, or I put it to the wayside. And I would still express gratitude verbally or intentionally with my mind, with my thoughts, but not pen to paper. And this has brought back that journaling aspect for me. And I find that this time of year with the darkness, like once it's dark outside, like I'm happy to be cozy season, so like it's almost like I have more time to just rest. And even if I'm sitting in front of the television, like whether I'm paying attention to the TV shows or not, doesn't matter, or if I have it off, but sitting by the Christmas tree lights with my journal and a candle and a hot cup of tea of some kind, I really just love getting into that intentional of like, again, letting go of the past, saying goodbye to things that needed to be said goodbye to, and offering forgiveness and gratitude for those experiences. Because something that was mentioned in the podcast, I don't remember which one, the last one, because I binge listened to them all in the last 2 hours before you and I connected today. But he basically said, like, can you give gratitude for the worst things that have happened to you in your life? It's easy to give gratitude for the good things, but success is a shitty teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So what about all those stuff, like those like shitty things that you've had to experience? Can you find the gratitude in that lesson, that experience, and why? And that one hit me, and I was like, wow, rather than, again, vilifying something for making it wrong, like, you know, oh, it's minus 40 outside. Well, you know what? Guess what? I get to stay home today. Guess what? I can work out in my basement. I don't have to lug my gym gear across the world to a gym and stand in line and hope that I get a spot to run on a treadmill for a half an hour. Well, I can work out in my basement and never have to leave my house and deal with the minus 40, you know, like looking at those kinds of things and flipping the switch on the beliefs that I'm holding on to and letting go of those beliefs and rewiring new ones so that I can create an abundant 2022.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's just so much magic in the next couple of weeks. You know, and I know not everyone's going to feel that, right? Like, some people are still experiencing not the greatest time. And like, who knows what 2022 is going to hold out for us. But I think if you set the right intentions and you hold the gratitude in your heart, I think you can make 2022 whatever the hell you want it, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's certain outstanding factors. However, you can still change the way that you think about those things or the way that you perceive them, right? So
that's right. Absolutely. And just to mention to our listeners, we're taking a couple of week hiatus because of the holiday season, because it is so busy. I know I'm going from 0 to 60. As soon as we end this podcast, I'm back on market prep. I have a market happening on Saturday, which is past when we release this video episode, but that's fine. And it's my first official market as a Winnipeg maker, and I'm super jazzed about that. So it's going to be a fun little experience for me, and it's just really putting me in that festive mood finally. And as soon as that market is done, I can tell you right now, I am in Christmas baking and wrapping mode like a mofo. Like, it's going to go warp speed. And then after it's all said and done and I'm enjoying Chinese food leftovers on Boxing Day, I get to start working on, okay, what do I want the next year to look like? Because I know for me, the last 2 years didn't look the way that I wanted to. But I'm going to spend that time being intentional with self, and then also thinking about what kinds of content we want to bring our listeners and how I can further serve my clients going forth into the new year. So if you are struggling or you just need some new perspective, please hook up with us for a session. I do have soul sessions available in December around the holidays and into January as well. And I know Erin, you as well.
Yeah.
So you can definitely find us on our social medias or our websites. I'm at Elevate with Carol Sky or carolsky.ca. And Erin?
I'm at Heal with Erin Mindi, and you can find my website at erinmindy.ca. Yeah. And I think just, like, it's a hectic time of year, but like Carol says, I have some availability open. I know I'll be really like, once Christmas is over, I'm going to be really diving into what the heck I'm creating. I'm getting some monthly circles going. Actually, they're going to be like twice monthly circles, both online and in person. So, well, restrictions bearing, you know, but I'll be really diving into that and like planning out kind of what my year is going to look like. And I'm super excited. So I think we were going to do, some sort of vision boarding thing as well with one of our mentors. So that'll be super cool.
That is going to be exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, with that, I guess this will be the end of the episode.
Absolutely. So whatever holiday you're celebrating, blessed Yule, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of the beautiful things that are out there. Just taking a look at that intention and enjoying the season for whatever it is, and honoring the grief that comes, honoring whatever emotions need to be honored at this time. We're here for you. We love you guys. And we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah, which is like, I can't believe it's going to be 2022 when we have our next episode.
Oh my gosh. That doesn't even seem like surreal to me. That's so surreal. It's only a few weeks away. But
right? Like
yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So we're not going far. We'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But until then, find us on socials. We'll keep you updated over there.
Totally. If we post.
I'll be posting. I like posting stuff. I gotta share that Yule Cat image. Come on now.
Yes. Yeah, you have to share the Yule Cat. Awesome.
Oh,
well, hopefully you guys all have a merry holiday season and happy New Year's and all that fun jazz. So take care, everyone.
Bye.